Heads up, it's the Roll Jays podcast, the voice of the Creighton basketball fan. With your hosts, Jimmy Allen, Alex Drake, and Casey Matthews. Join the crew and meet CU players, coaches, and a whole lot more. Now, the Roll Jays podcast. Here's Jimmy Allen.
Welcome into the Roll Jays podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing and Pyramid Contractors. Jimmy Allen, Casey Matthews, and Alex Drake with you here, brought to you by Big East Energy. If you haven't subscribed to the network on YouTube, please do so today. We got a lot of great topics to cover today. The roster is continuing to be filled up. There are 3 spots left on Greg McDermott's team in 2025. What do we think that's going to look like, and what spots have been filled since the last time that we spoke to you? Can you redshirt in 2025? Speaking of those roster spots, one big spot has been filled by a 7'1" Serbian player, and we're going to tell you who that is and what that looks like. And can he be the next Ryan Kalkbrenner? And does that mean that he has to sit out a year? And can you make players sit out in 2025? We'll discuss that. And then Ryan Kalkbrenner himself just took home a pretty big, literally and figuratively, award. Casey Matthews was in attendance for the award. We'll talk about what that meant for Ryan and the future of Creighton basketball as well. Guys, obviously, since the last time we talked, Alex was passing around fake children, and Casey was at the Final Four, so a lot has happened since then. But the additions of Owen Freeman, Nick Graves, and Josh Dix have been huge. And then let's get Casey, do you know how to pronounce his last name? I don't want to butcher it.
No clue, and I'm not even going to try.
I believe it's Dimitrovic, but I could be wrong. We're
going to go with that.
We'll have a few years to get that under our belts and work that out. But 4 spots have been filled, and to get to a complete roster of 15, that leaves 3 spots left open. I talked to Alex, and I kind of talked about this, but we didn't get your thoughts on Nick Graves. I really liked his game and the way it's set up at Charlotte. There was a lot of screens, off-ball screens to kind of free him up, and he was able to create offense on his own and off the dribble. What do you like about Nick Graves' game that you think could fit well into the system?
I like his size. His size, and I think one, he's going to be our point guard, which should free up Josh to not have to be such a creator. I know he can do it. Talked to a couple guys on the staff, and they're really confident in his ability to create, not just hit shots. But I do like the fact that it kind of frees him up a little bit to be more in that like Trey Alexander type of role. I'm speaking about Josh. Mm-hmm. As far as Nick, I love his size. I think he's more athletic than he gets credit for. And I think you need somebody that can create, somebody that can drive, somebody that can get in the lane and make plays for others. And I certainly think that he fits that mold. Does he shoot it like Steven? No. So that's, the offense will run a little bit differently, but he's still good. He's still a shooter that you have to respect. I don't think you can go under ball screens with him, which to me is a big part about the offense. I think if we ever lose that part of our offense, then, I will see how that goes. I don't think Coach Mack wants to go back to the Ryan Nembhard way, of rescreening, and we can get into the weeds if we want. But anyway, I like what he brings to the table. And maybe more importantly, and I don't have specifics on this, but what I was told is the price.
Sure.
That's just the reality in this day and age. And
all right, how much exactly is Nick Graves' NIL contract? We need to know.
From what I understand, he took a better situation over better money. And so I love that for 2 reasons. One, because we need to be able to have some money freed up in other areas. But 2, I think it tells you a lot about him, and it tells you what's important to him.
And win. I don't know if you've gone back and had the chance to listen to the interview that I did with Owen Freeman too. A
little bit of it, yeah.
And I don't want to speak for Owen. I don't know if this is exactly true, but just kind of reading the tea leaves, kind of sounds like him and Josh Dix did the same exact thing too. And there may have been and Owen was talking about how they went out in their dinner plans and all that, and everybody knows about the hashtags that were trending on social media. But he kind of brought up like, hey, Omaha is a place where we can maybe get some outside NIL deals too, like we had in Iowa City, but on a bigger scale as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. The Owen numbers that have been thrown around, they're all over the place.
Sure.
I don't think he's touching some of the numbers that I've heard. And not to say that he couldn't command that, but he wanted to be here.
It sounded like he made a business decision to be here too.
100%.
And
how could you not?
I'm sure there was probably some numbers thrown out there that maybe he was looking for. And again, this is no insider knowledge from anybody that's talking right now. But from the conversation I had with him on camera, it sounded like there were more opportunities that were attractive to him rather than just a big dollar amount.
I mean, if you watch Ryan Kalkbrenner's career and you're a big guy,
which he referenced twice by himself, unsolicited, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, Alex, what do you think, man? I mean, I know.
Well, I was going to ask you, Alex, because the one thing that we've talked about continuously for the last 4 years is getting size at the guard position. It feels like they've done that in 2 different spots now.
Yeah, no, I love Nick Graves. I watched this film before we talked about him the other night. And I don't know if Casey agrees. And, I'm going to back off it a little bit since I've watched more film. But I said he reminded me in certain ways, specifically size and ability, to your guy Marcus Zagorowski. Not a pure shooter, but a good shooter. But his ability to get to the rim, his ability to create, and then we've Jimmy and I have hammered this home for a couple of years now. Just getting more size on the perimeter from a guard position, it'll help you in defense. You look at when Baylor Shireman would get guards on him just 2 years ago, he was able to go back some of those guys down. Now he's a 6'8" guard. Nick Graves obviously isn't a 6'8" guard, but when you have size at that guard position, you get to create some different types of mismatches, not just looking for a big on a little to take him off the dribble and things like that. And, I think on the flip side, other teams have taken advantage of their size advantage at the guard position against our point guards the last few years in certain situations, whether it's Stephen Ashworth or Ryan Nembhard. So I love that they've gone out and got size at the guard position, both with Nick Graves and Josh Dix. To your point, I love that Josh Dix is not going to have to be a primary facilitator, and he's going to be able to be more of a shot hunter. And, with Trey Ziegler on the staff and what he does with guys shooting the ball, specifically look at what Jemiah Neal did this year, right? Like, he improved a ton. I think getting these guys to understand where they fit into this offense is going to be the hardest job, right? But I think what you just brought up about Nick Graves, I think that actually is going to be easier than we would have originally thought for most point guards coming in.
Why do you think that?
If you're willing, in my opinion, if you're willing to take less money up front for a better situation, it shows to me that you're committed to winning and you're committed to doing X, Y, Z to better the program, better your status, whether it's for the NBA or whatever it may be. But if you're not thinking just dollars and you're thinking about the whole picture, it shows me that you're open to the coaching, you're open to the system, and you're open to growing.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think what's also interesting is we're just coming off a season where how many times do we hear the players and Coach Mack talk about the locker room? And I feel like that's something where the locker room was so tight that I just can't help but think that that's been factoring into their decisions as they recruit, is that they saw so much benefit from having a tight-knit group like that trying to not force it, but trying to in some ways recreate that with unselfish guys that are talented, but are team first.
Well, I want to talk about that for a quick second too, because I think the one thing that has blown me away about all of that is how often Ty Davis and Jackson McAndrew were referenced in those points, right? And you're talking about 2 guys that are freshmen that kind of took this group of seniors and helped them bond together, which I think is really, really unique. But that's something that Owen Freeman talked about openly too, that a lot of the reason that he came here was how well he gelled with those 2 guys. So I think from obviously Ty's still going to have a little bit of a backseat role this year with the players. And Casey, to your point, the money that you're spending right now, and Ty would openly admit that he's probably not ready for that spot yet, despite what we saw at the end of the season. But I think it's really intriguing that those 2 guys kind of seem to be the cornerstone of what they want the culture of this locker room to be. And they're both true sophomores.
Well, here's what's interesting about that. I got a chance to spend some time with Mac last week at the Final Four. And I asked him about Ty and just what he thinks. And he loves Ty. So he thinks Ty's future is bright as a Blue Jay. And but he said something that was so interesting in this day and age, is he said Ty was the main guy on the team helping recruit Graves, knowing that he's the point guard. And he was all about him because he feels like he's going to help us win. And it was awesome, man. I mean, Mac was just beaming talking about it. And I think that's kind of what I feel is like Mac knows. I mean, Mac knows how important that locker room is. And he always has, but I just think coming off of a season like this where they're all good friends, and I think if he can find a way to recreate that type of vibe there, it could pay dividends, because you are going to have a lot of new bodies, and you always will.
Yeah.
But you're going to have new bodies in really important positions. And so not only those spots, but the people around them are really important.
Well, it's intriguing right from the Ty Davis standpoint because Nick Graves is only going to come in for one season. And Josh Dix is going to be there for 2. So you've got the ability to kind of come in, watch Nick Graves and the way he facilitates the basketball if you're Ty Davis, and kind of build off of that and get ready for your last 2 years where you're essentially probably going to be the guy. And to have that level of self-awareness as an 18, 19-year-old kid that's still true freshman in college is really a breath of fresh air for what we're talking about in the world of college athletics today.
Couldn't agree more. I think it's refreshing.
And you got to wonder too, like from Ty, right? And I'm not saying this happened, but like, does Ty hear stories all this season from guys like Steven, from Ryan, about how that team was different and makes Ty think about that moving forward? Like, hey, we want to carry this on.
They're both pretty open about it.
I mean, I'm not saying that's necessarily the case, but, Ty Davis, we probably didn't give it enough credit, but Ty Davis was always one of the first guys off the bench all season when something happened, celebrating his teammates. And, to Casey's point and your point, Jimmy, like that's not the case all the time in college athletics or anything in life, right? Like it's really hard sometimes for people to celebrate their peers' success when they're not getting it.
And I think even like personally, I did this. Like I think a lot of times this season, we kind of jokingly laughed at Ty Davis and Jackson McAndrew, but more Ty than Jackson, were the last guys off the court taking pictures with fans or hugging family or just being in the building. And we hear so much the term first one there, last one to leave. I can't remember a game this season where the last person in the locker room wasn't Ty Davis. And listen, I mean, I think a lot of us looked at that as, oh, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed freshman. But I think that's a culture thing for him, too, is being the guy that celebrates the fans and talks to the coaches and is present and visible for this program. And that could pay off dividends 1, 2, 3 years down the road as well.
Yeah.
I want to get to the open roster spots. There are 3 open roster spots still available. Casey, where do you think Creighton needs to address those spots at?
I think you got to go get a wing, somebody that's, the interesting thing is how do you use Jackson? Because, if you play Jackson at the 3 and Jason at the 4, then you're looking for a backup wing. Yep. If you're thinking that maybe Jackson needs to slide to the 4 and you want to bring in a starting 3 and play Jason off the bench a little bit, then that changes it. So my assumption is they're still going to look for, best player available at the wing spot and just sort of figure it out from there, because I do think Jackson's versatility and Jason's versatility defensively allows them to be flexible there. I think they're good at the point guard spot. I think they're good at the 5 spot. I know we're going to touch on redshirting here in a moment. So yeah, I mean, I think a wing, 2, 3, 4, somewhere in that range that can score it and that's comfortable with a role. It might not be a starting role, so someone that's comfortable with coming off the bench. And a lot of this guys is going to be determined on their NIL situation, and I don't have the numbers. I don't know what it is, but I know Coach Mack, and I know if there's a player he thinks that can help get them across, a certain threshold, he'll find a way.
Alex, same question to you, but I want to kind of piggyback off what Casey just said, because for me personally, I think it will be kind of a Jemiah Neal kind of tweener between a 3 and a 4, a guy that can give you defensive presence with length and a guy that can maybe create a little bit offensively if he wants. Now, the one guy you didn't mention, Casey, that I think is maybe the most intriguing cog in the wheel this season is Isaac Trout, who kind of can give you that if he can get there defensively and maybe get a little bit quicker with his feet. Alex, do you think what spots – listen, there's 3 of them too. They may not fill all 3, but they have the availability.
I don't think they will, guys. I don't think they're going to fill all 3.
I think we're looking at one or two more guys, and maybe a transfer guy that's just looking for a really good fit that's willing to go somewhere to win.
Yeah. Before you jump in, Alex, I'm surprised you said that, Jimmy, about Isaac being the intriguing one. Like, I agree, and I've said this for a bit. I just wish Isaac could play the 5.
Would play the 5.
I think he'd be such a threat. But hold on, let me get this in.
Yeah.
I actually think the intriguing one is Fedor.
Which we haven't even mentioned.
That's where I'm going. That's where I'm going, Case.
Yeah, that to me is interesting because I think what they decide to do could give you a little bit of a glimpse into the tea leaves on what Fedor's situation is.
I was about to say, and that's kind of the reason I left it out, because I'm still trying to figure out what that looks like and if he's still here next season, if he wants to be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I said it after the last game. Like, Fedor was one of my biggest question marks on guys coming back. Does he want to go back to Europe and do his thing over there? He came over, played an NCAA tournament, whatever. But I think if he's here, how the coaches feel about his development is a bigger tell for where they go for these last couple spots. Do they feel like he can defend at a high level? Because he has shown the ability to get to the rim. He has shown the ability to shoot the ball well. So does he factor in at a 2 spot or a 3 spot? I think he's the determining factor on what is the primary focus for the next spot. Because if they feel like he can defend and he's ready to go, he's probably penciled in right there with Josh Dix as your other starting guy on the perimeter, with Jason coming off the bench potentially. So I think Fedor is kind of that X factor and where they're going with that potentially. But, if you can also go get another really good shooter, just a pure shooter, that can create a little bit here and there, kind of like can't remember my boy from 2 years ago off the bench from TCU.
Francisco.
Farabello. Yeah, if you can go find another Farabello type guy, I think you take that, a guy that, spot minutes here and there, but a great team guy. I think that's probably, if Fedor's here, you're probably just looking for really good team guys at this point.
Well, and I think that leads perfectly into our next topic of discussion, right? Is can you redshirt a guy in 2025 that you really see the long-term investment now? And obviously a guy like Aleska, who's going to come in at a legit 7'1", but really just 215 pounds, and just looking at him, that might be a little bit generous if I'm being honest, where you go, okay, that guy could really benefit from a year with Jeremy Anderson, the strength and conditioning program, and being in a college weight training program. And is he ready day one? Now, Casey, to your point about money and NIL and where money is being spent at, you're not getting a 7'1" rim protector for very cheap. I mean, we don't know the dollar amount on what it costs to get one of those guys, but we know it wasn't cheap to keep one. And Ryan Kalkbrenner, right? So there's going to be this really big internal battle with coaches now. Do we redshirt guys, or do we let them try to live up to the amount of money we're paying them?
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating conversation. For multiple reasons,
and it's probably different in every locker room too, right?
The interesting thing for us is now we're going to have 2 guys that are going to be here, hopefully be here for at least 2 to 3 years at that spot. And I think that is that's really intriguing to see how they do that mathematically. I think some of it will be determined by this house settlement and how that shakes out. And
you're also in the Big East, where you don't have to worry about paying football money either.
Well, that's huge. That's the whole point. That's the whole thing. I think the Big East is in a prime spot right now for at least the next 2 to 3 years. If these complaints and lawsuits and objections don't pan out to something better for the Big Ten, the SEC, maybe a little bit of the Big 12, but I think the Big East is in a good spot in terms of redshirting. I talked to a few coaches this week. Here's the thing that I keep hearing from them on redshirting is it's very hard to redshirt somebody and then still keep them happy with their role and their future role. And because of that, what you could end up doing is paying somebody what their NIL is for this year, and then still go into the portal. Now, make no mistake, that can still happen even if they are happy with their role. We're seeing guys go in all the time,
sure, that
are playing minutes. But I think you got to be really careful with redshirting, because you don't want to put yourself in that situation where a guy play minutes, but you're not playing him because you're trying to maybe keep him for one more year, or not create issues with the other guys. That's why I don't think we're going to fill all the spots. And one thing that Coach Mack is so good at is identifying roles and communicating roles. And so I think he'll have to be really clear with who fills out this roster, because there's a lot of talent on this roster already and a lot of expectations on this roster already. You start bringing in more bodies, Matt can do the job, and hopefully he's got a very experienced assistant coach alongside with him that can help him with that. But
yeah, it's the other interesting spot, because not only is there 3 roster spots, there's that one coaching spot that's open also.
Casey, I want to flip what you're saying about the red shirt back on the other angle too. Like, obviously, it's hard to redshirt from a player perspective, but with the amount of movement that happens in college basketball today, I think it's really hard as a coach to redshirt somebody, because you want to see them in games. You want to know what you have moving forward. If they're a guy that you really want to keep, like we've talked about it, and I'm not saying this for any individual player, but there are some guys at the college level in every sport that just aren't good in practice, right? Like there are some gamers, and that's not the majority. That's the exception to the rule. There are just some guys that just can't lock in practice, and anybody who's played sports has seen it.
Tyshawn Alexander, great example.
Thank you. But so you have to play some of these guys that you think will eventually be a cornerstone of your program, because you have to know you have, right? Like you can't just let him sit there and redshirt him.
I agree. I think we're going to see less and less of it. I really do.
Unless there's an injury, it doesn't make sense in my opinion.
Yeah.
The only reason that I think there's a possibility Alexia redshirts is because I wonder how much different that conversation sounds with somebody that is coming overseas to play versus somebody that is from the States too. And I think there's got to be a little bit of that as well. Casey, you were at the Naismith Men's College Defensive Player of the Year award ceremony for Ryan Kalkbrenner. A, did you guys go get ice cream afterwards? B, did you see John Fanta? And what was the experience like?
A, ice cream, no. We did not go get ice cream. This was a surprise, so I didn't want to ruin the surprise, and it was a surprise to me. Ended up getting a spot the night before. I'll tell the story later because it's kind of a crazy story. So I told Lucas to not tell Ryan, and so I walked in, was greeted by John Fanta, of course, the man, and got a chance to talk to John for a little bit, and then
he hugged me at MSG. I don't know if I told you guys that.
He's the best, man.
He's great,
the absolute best. So we walked down and walked in there and saw him, and he was surprised, and it was a cool. I mean, I could talk about this one for a bit. It was truly one of the coolest basketball memories I'll ever have. Just being in that room with the great players, historical great players. Christian Laettner was in there. There's a bunch. I'm drawing blanks now, but there's a bunch. I met Roy Williams for the first time. Like, just unbelievable experience. So blessed to be a part of it.
So Roy's coming on the show in a few weeks, right?
Yeah.
I talked to him about it. He said, I don't understand. I wasn't in the Big East. But
what's a podcast?
Yeah, exactly. But so it was cool, man, to see him, and it was just a neat experience. I mean, I'm just so proud of him, and he did a good job on his speech, and
why so much surprise in your voice when you say that?
No, not at all. I was just in those moments, man. Like I was just proud of him. I really was, and it was neat to see the Big East be represented. Coach Pitino was there to win Coach of the Year, and then we got the Defensive Player of the Year. So it was great. I told Lucas in one of those moments, I was just like, hey man, soak this in, because you just don't know if you'll ever be in a room like this again with this kind of experience going on. I mean, to see Cooper Flagg come out there and take Player of the Year 12 hours after they lost in the Final Four, and they moved the ceremony around to get him in there, to get him out so they could fly home. Fran Fraschilla did an unbelievable job hosting the event and talking through, all the different awards. I was a big Bill Walton guy, and I loved Bill, and they had a moment for Bill Walton. It was just really neat. I was really happy for Coach Mack.
Many people were saying Fran Fraschilla was no Jimmy Allen, though. So
I heard that a lot of rumblings internally
step
there.
his game up a little bit. Yeah,
but no, it was a good moment. I'm very feel very lucky that I could be there, take some pictures with them on the stage, and really share in that moment, honoring, one of the greatest players in Creighton history, and for me in my life and career, one of the guys that I'm closest with, and I hope to be close with the rest of my life. So it was a pretty neat deal, and I think he did a heck of a job representing Creighton University and the Roll Jays podcast, because he's definitely one of the more notable guests.
For sure. Hey, this has been the Roll Jays podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing and Pyramid Contractors. We're going to try to get you a couple of podcasts a week. Hopefully you've liked and subscribed to the new Big East Energy page. We are looking for new podcasts as well. So if you do host a Big East podcast, we'd love to add you, or at least have the conversation with you about adding you to the rotation as well.
We do need to add one more thing for the Big Pal. The Big Pal's basketball camp is coming up April 26th. It's at the UBT Sports Complex in Elkhorn. April 26th from 9 to 1 p.m. Still spots available. So just Google Ryan Kalkbrenner Youth Basketball Camp. It'll take you to the sign-up page. But he's wanting to have a big turnout there and get a chance to give back to the community. So
I'll be in attendance as well, grabbing some pictures and stuff also. So maybe you're one of the 4 Jimmy Allen fans. You want to come out and meet me, I'll be there as well. But
there's 4 of those? There's 4 now?
We're up to 4, boys. But if you do have a youth in your life that want to learn from literally the Naismith Men's College Defensive Player of the Year, who set Casey Matthews' personal ringtone for him, you can do that at Ryan Kalkbrenner's camp. This has been the Roll Jays podcast. We'll see you on the flip side.